Are the Philistines and the Palestinians the same people? It's a question that stirs curiosity, debate, and sometimes controversy. On the surface, the names sound alike, Philistines and Palestinians, and that alone has led many to assume a direct link between the two. But is that assumption accurate, or is it a historical misunderstanding that needs careful unpacking? In this video, we'll travel back over 3,000 years to explore the true origins of the Philistines. We'll then jump forward through centuries of migration, conquest, and cultural change to examine the emergence of the Palestinian people as we understand them today. This journey through time will uncover surprising truths, challenge popular narratives, and highlight the rich, complex histories of both groups. Whether you're a history enthusiast, a student of the Middle East, or just curious about how ancient legacies shape modern identities, you're in the right place. To understand any comparison, we must start with a solid foundation. Who exactly were the Philistines? The Philistines appear in the historical record around the early 12th century BCE. They settled along the coastal plains of Canaan, in the region we now call the Gaza Strip, in parts of southern Israel. Their main cities, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath, became known collectively as the Philistine Pentapolis. These were not small villages. They were fortified cities with advanced urban planning, temples, marketplaces, and unique pottery styles that distinguished them from their neighbors. But where did these people come from? The most widely supported theory is that the Philistines were part of the so-called Sea Peoples, a mysterious confederation of naval raiders who appeared across the eastern Mediterranean at the end of the Bronze Age. The Sea Peoples attacked Egypt during the reign of Pharaoh Ramses III, and while Egypt managed to repel them, some groups migrated further north, settling in coastal Canaan. Ancient Egyptian records, biblical texts, and archaeological evidence suggest that the Philistines likely came from the Aegean region, possibly from Mycenaean Greece, Crete, or Cyprus. Their material culture, especially pottery and architecture, strongly resembles that of Aegean civilizations. Interestingly, the Bible refers to the Philistines as coming from Caphtor, which many scholars identify with Crete. So in short, the Philistines were likely a seafaring people of Aegean origin who migrated into the Levant and established their own powerful city-states along the coast of ancient Canaan. Once settled, the Philistines quickly became one of the major powers in the region. They often clashed with their Israelite neighbors, and much of what we know about them comes from the Hebrew Bible, which portrays them as antagonists to the Israelites. Think of the famous story of David and Goliath. Goliath was a Philistine warrior. However, modern archaeology paints a more nuanced picture. The Philistines were not merely warriors, they were skilled artisans, traders, and agriculturalists. They introduced new technologies to the region, including iron tools and weapons, which helped usher in the Iron Age. Philistine religion was polytheistic, with deities such as Dagon, Ashtoreth, and Baal playing major roles. Temples and altars have been unearthed in their cities, revealing ritual practices similar to those in the broader ancient Near East. But their influence didn't last forever. By the 7th century BCE, the Philistine cities came under the control of the expanding Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians imposed heavy tribute and reduced the city's autonomy. Then, in the early 6th century BCE, the Babylonians under King Nebuchadnezzar II conquered the region and destroyed the Philistine cities. After that point, the Philistines essentially vanished from the historical record. There's no evidence of a continuous Philistine ethnic identity after their cities were destroyed. Over time, the remnants of their population likely assimilated with surrounding peoples, losing their distinct language and culture. So how did the name Philistine survive long after the people themselves disappeared? This brings us to the Roman Empire. After crushing the Bar Kokhba revolt in 135 CE, a major Jewish uprising, the Roman Emperor Hadrian sought to erase Jewish national identity from the region. As part of this effort, he renamed the province of Judea to Syria Palestina, drawing from the ancient name Philistia. This was a symbolic act. Hadrian chose a name associated with the ancient enemies of the Jews, the long-vanished Philistines, as a way to suppress Jewish claims to the land. Over time, the term Palestine came to refer to the broader region, used by Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, and later Muslim and Ottoman rulers. But it no longer had anything to do with the Philistines as a people. Now let's fast forward nearly 2,000 years. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, under Ottoman rule and later the British Mandate, the people living in Palestine, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, began to develop national identities in response to political changes and colonial pressures. The term Palestinian came to refer to the Arabic-speaking inhabitants of the land. These were people with deep roots in the region, descendants of ancient Semitic peoples, including Canaanites, Hebrews, Arameans, Arabs, and others. By the time of the British Mandate, 1917 to 1948, the term Palestinian was commonly used to describe the Arab population of the land, including Muslims and Christians. Jewish communities at the time were also sometimes called Palestinian. For instance, the Palestine Post was a Jewish newspaper. But after the establishment of Israel in 1948, the term Palestinian became primarily associated with Arabs. The modern Palestinian identity solidified over the course of the 20th century, particularly after the Nakba, or catastrophe, of 1948, when over 700,000 Palestinians were displaced during the Arab-Israeli War. This is the core question. Are modern Palestinians the descendants of the ancient Philistines? The answer, based on current evidence, is no, at least not directly. Linguistically, culturally, and ethnically, the Philistines were a distinct people of Aegean origin. They spoke an Indo-European language, though it was eventually lost, and practiced a religion foreign to the Semitic traditions of the Levant. Palestinians, by contrast, are Arab. Their language is Arabic, their religion is typically Islam or Christianity, and their culture is part of the broader Arab world. Genetic studies show that Palestinians, like other Levantine populations, including Jews, Samaritans, Druze, and Lebanese, are descended from the ancient inhabitants of the region, primarily Canaanites and other Semitic groups. Could there be some Philistine ancestry among Palestinians? Possibly. After the fall of the Philistine cities, survivors would have intermarried with their neighbors. But any such genetic trace would be small and indistinguishable after thousands of years of population mixing. In other words, Palestinians are not Philistines, but they may share distant ancestry with them, just as they do with other ancient peoples of the Levant. So why do some people insist that Palestinians are Philistines? There are several reasons. First, the similarity in names, Philistine and Palestinian, creates a linguistic association that seems compelling but is historically misleading. Second, some political narratives use this idea either to claim ancient continuity or to deny legitimacy. On both sides of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, historical claims are often used to support modern political goals. It's crucial to separate historical inquiry from political propaganda. History matters, not just for understanding the past, but for making sense of the present. Recognizing that Palestinians are not Philistines doesn't diminish their deep roots in the land, nor does it delegitimize their identity or claims. It simply acknowledges the complex, multi-layered history of a region where people, cultures, and empires have risen and fallen for millennia. Likewise, understanding that the Philistines were a distinct Aegean people helps us appreciate the diversity of the ancient Near East and the wide-ranging migrations that shaped early civilizations. So, are the Philistines and Palestinians the same people? The answer is no, not in any meaningful cultural, linguistic, or ethnic sense. But both are part of the rich human story of the land we now call Israel and Palestine. History is not about drawing straight lines from the past to the present. It's about recognizing patterns, influences, and transformations over time. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. And remember, the truth is always more complex and more fascinating than the myth.